Hi, this is Craig. First of all, thank you very much for purchasing Scan 3D. It is the smallest and most sensitive magnet detector on the market, and it's fully compatible with your ProMystic modular receiver. We're going to get right into this, so we're going to start with the modular receiver, and then we're going to talk about how to use your Scan 3D. Now this receiver has an on-off switch, and it has two replaceable batteries. So you can always find these batteries at a local grocery store, and you'll always be able to replace them when you need them. The switch is designed to be felt through clothing. So if you have this receiver, most commonly people keep it in their sock. I often keep it right here in my under my belt, and some people keep it in an armband, like a iPod Nano armband. And you'll actually be able to feel the switch through your clothing to turn it on and off, which is a great feature. That way you can turn it on and off, right before your performance, and it's easy to set up. When you turn the unit on, you'll actually get a 1-second buzz. That tells you that it's active. When you turn it off, you don't get anything. In the on position, it is consuming power. And in the off position, it's completely off and disconnected. So you can leave the batteries in the receiver while you're not using it. In fact, these lithium batteries will not corrode. So you can leave these in there for years and years, and they have a 10-year shelf life. So you can leave this on there, leave the batteries in there for a very long time, and it won't corrode your receiver, and they won't go flat on you. It'll always be ready to go. Now, when you turn this on, like I said, you get a 1-second buzz, and then you know it's ready to go. When it's time to replace the batteries, there's two slots in the back of the receiver, and you push the batteries up and out. I'm going to use a pen cap, the end of a pen cap, to push them out through the slots like that. And then you do both sides, and you go ahead and just pull this right out of the receiver. Now this is a CR2032 battery. You can get these batteries almost anywhere, and they're very inexpensive. You can even buy them online. I always buy name brand batteries like Panasonic, Sony, Renata, Energizer, Duracell. I ship it with Panasonic, so I really like those. I stay away from no-name brands, and I definitely stay away from the Radio Shack brand. I have had very bad luck with those. But I have bought some of these at a dollar store, and they have worked fantastic. So you might experiment a little bit, but try to buy the best battery that you can for it. Now there's a plus sign on the battery, and there's a plus sign here on the receiver. That's how you know how to put the battery in. So the two plus signs are up, and that slides in. You replace both of them at the same time, and that's all that you need to do. Now the lifespan of this receiver is 20 hours on a new set of batteries, and that's 20 active hours. That means when the switch is on, the clock starts, and in 20 hours these batteries will be dead. So if you do a 1-hour show, you should replace these batteries after 20 shows. If you're conservative, do it after 10 shows. If you use it 15 minutes at a time, just keep a mental clock of how often you've used it, and then replace it every 20 hours. Now when the batteries do start to go out, the receiver will start giving long buzzes. It might be giving you a signal like bzz, bzz, like a 2, and then give you this long buzz. That tells you that the battery is actually going dead, and you need to replace them. And again, you should do it about every 20 hours. If you use this continuously, so if you turn this on, this receiver will go for 10 straight hours. There's a very heavy load placed on these batteries, and when you use it constantly and you don't turn it off, like at a big long trade show, it's only going to go for 10 hours. You don't actually get the full 20. You only get the 20 when you've used it like an hour at a time. You'll get to 20, but if you use it in one big block, you get less time. Now one thing you might want to think about is where you're going to keep the receiver. And again, a lot of people put this on their arm or in their belt or in their sock. It works fantastic in your sock. You can really feel it, and it's very easy to turn it on and off. Now something to think about is I do get these back every once in a while, and they're corroded on the inside. And when I open them up, it's almost always due to sweat. So depending on where you're performing, what environment you're in and how humid it is, you might actually consider getting yourself a little plastic bag. And you can put the receiver inside of a plastic bag, and then it will prevent it from getting any sweat or moisture on it. And it doesn't affect the range at all. By having it in this plastic bag does absolutely nothing. In fact, I could put this in my sock and jump in a pool, and it will work underwater, and it won't get wet, so it'll be totally fine, and the water won't even block it. So This is a good way to protect it if you notice that it's getting damp or moist or anything like that.
Okay, we're going to talk about Scan 3D, but the first thing I want to talk about, it's a little bit technical, but I want to talk about magnetism and why it's so difficult to detect very small magnets. Now, there's something in physics, it's called the inverse square law. And what this law is, it dictates things like light and sound and electrostatic charge. And essentially what it says is, as you get further and further away from a source of light or static charge or even sound, basically it's inversely proportional to the square of the distance. So what that means is it decays as 1 over the distance squared. So if we're measuring something at 1 foot versus something at 11 feet, the difference there is 10 feet. So the sound intensity decays by 100 because that's 10 feet squared. So it's the square of the distance, it's 1 over that. So the intensity is 1/100th of it at the original source, or at a 1 foot measurement from the source. Now, the thing about magnetism is it actually, there's some debate on actually how it does it, but it actually decays much closer to 1 over the distance cubed. So instead of being 100 times less sensitive, it's actually 1,000 times less sensitive. So what that means is if you want to just increase by just a few inches from a given source, you have to be close to hundreds of times more sensitive than another sensor. And that's why it's so difficult to do. And what tends to happen is the Earth's magnetic field tends to get in the way. So that's why Scan 3D, it does handle all this stuff for you, and it's extremely small. And it's also very, very low power. We're going to show you just how sensitive it actually is, but it really is revolutionary in the way that it works. Now, this is the unit that you have. And as you can see, it is very small. It's about 1/4 the size of anything else that's on the market. It has a little light on the top. You'll see there's a little hole there, and there's a light inside there. It has a USB port, and this is for charging the unit. And it has a small on-off switch on the side. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the receiver on. I'm going to place it on the box so that you'll be able to hear it. And I'm going to turn on the Scan 3D. The way that's done is on the switch you can use your fingernail, and I'm just going to gently pull the switch down. It's not super strong switch, so be a little bit careful with it, but it should be robust enough for a lot of uses. I'm going to pull it down, and you're going to hear this vibrate 3 times. That was the unit done, set up, and ready to calibrated, so it's now ready to detect magnets. To turn it off, I'm going to go ahead and flip that switch up, and now the unit is actually off. So we're going to try out some different magnets, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use a magnetic $1/2. This is actually very strong for this particular unit. Now, I'm going to set it on my table with the head side up. I'm going to turn this thing on. Now, okay, we're going to turn the Scan 3D on. When we do that, it's going to calibrate and give the 3 buzzes onto the receiver. And I'm going to do that now. And I want to hold this thing away from any other magnets when I do that. Okay, so I'm gonna turn this thing on. Even having the receiver in your hand when you do this is there's a motor in there, and it's magnetic, so you don't want to even have the receiver in your hand really when you do this. And you want to hold this thing out in the open. You want to orient it the way you're going to use it. So if you're going to use it strapped in your watch this way, you want to hold it that way when you turn it on. If you're going to strap it in your watch upside down, you want to hold it upside down when you turn it on. So I'm going to do that now. We're going to get the 3 buzzes. Now I'm going to go ahead and use, this is a fairly strong magnetic $1/2. I think it's a Tango $1/2. It's not a Christ, so it's not quite, maybe not as strong as one of those. But I'm going to hold this thing in my hand. I'm going to do this a little bit unnaturally. I'm going to hold it here so that you can see it. And you're going to see there's a light on this that also turns on as it gets the signal. So I'm going to start bringing it closer and closer, and you're going to see it actually turn on right there. So we're getting a single signal right there representing the heads of this particular coin. I'm going to flip it over and show the tails. Now we're getting the double pulse, showing that this is the tail side. So it does do heads and tails. Now again, you want to have this thing oriented with the earth down, when you turn this on and you want to use it that way over your spectator's hand coming from the top down onto the coin, if you want to do heads and tails with this. If you're not doing heads and tails, you just want a detection, it doesn't really matter. You're going to get a long buzz, or you're going to get 2 short buzzes for heads and tails, for either one, and it doesn't really matter how you do it. Now, we're going to do a couple of things. I'm going to just show you on the speed of this unit. I just turned it off. But I'm going to show you on the speed of this unit how fast it actually scans. That was a 3 for the calibration. I'm going to hold this quarter in my hand and just bring it right over my hand. You'll notice that it does actually scan very, very quickly. This is just, it picked up a second buzz there, but this is just a matter of 100 milliseconds is how fast you can go over the hand and you can get a reading. Now, it happens to be reading correctly. This is tails that I have up. I'm going to put heads up right now. So it is reading correctly, but this kind of a motion is not the best for getting heads and tails, because you can get a miss. You're much better coming in from the top, coming down on it in order to get the proper heads and tails. Now, you do see that there is a light there that comes on when you get it. The light doesn't mean it's always going to send a signal. So if you're seeing lights on this, it doesn't mean that, and you didn't get a buzz, it doesn't mean that it's not working properly. The light doesn't mean that you're going to get a signal every single time. It's more of an indication that it's starting to see a magnetic field. If it's strong enough, it'll send the signal. It typically will send it, but not every time. So don't think it's broken if you don't get the signal. Now, you can have this receiver pretty much anywhere on your body, like in your ankle or in your waist, to get the buzzing. Now, we're going to do something I think that you're going to find quite amazing, and that is I am going to use, well, first of all, I'll tell you what I'm going to do is I'm going to just grab a magnetic quarter, and we will test that next. Okay, now we have a magnetic quarter. This actually is a Tango magnetic quarter. And typically on these, the heads is a long buzz and the tails is the double short buzz, but you need to check it on your equipment. Now, you're actually going to see that this is actually going to be able to pick up that signal off the back of the hand. That's about 3.5 to 4 inches away from that quarter, and it's actually detecting the quarter without even touching the back of the hand. And of course, it's getting the polarity correct. That's the tails right there. Sorry, that was the heads. And then let's have the tails side up, and let's do the same thing. Hopefully the camera's picking up that little flashing light that you can see there. And again, it's extremely fast scan time. You can pick that up very, very quickly just by going past the hand. Now, we did get an incorrect read that time, and I think you'll notice. So, again, this type of scanning is not the best for heads and tails. You can get a miss. You're much better coming down from the top, and you should always get that correct. So, that is the magnetic quarter. Now we're going to do something I think you'll find really amazing. This is a very, very small magnet. This is about a 32nd of an inch thick, and it's just over 1/4 of an inch in diameter, so it's very small. It does not have a very strong magnetic field at all. I've actually been able to load this onto a bill, a borrowed bill, and also I've made a little bulldog clip where I can stick it on the side of the clip, and then I can borrow a bill and just use the clip to hold the bill together. So 2 different ways to do it. But I'm going to place this in my hand, and we're going to take the magnet sensor. Now, granted, you do have to get close, but look at that. I'm still even off the back of the hand, and it's still detecting that, and it's even giving it heads and tails. I'll do it off of this side as well. There's our heads. So it's actually detecting that small of a magnet. So this is something that you may want to gaff your own object, and this is something that you could use. I probably would go a little bit bigger, something maybe a 32nd of an inch. Something you should definitely know, that magnetic field, though, is really proportional to the thickness of the magnet. So having a 32nd of an inch magnet, by increasing the diameter of this, yes, it helps out a little bit, but by going to a 1/16 of an inch, this makes it quite a bit stronger. In fact, this is even stronger than what's inside of a quarter because of the thickness of it. It's probably even close to the $1/2, but let's just take a look at this one. Yeah, we're getting a good, I would say that's about 4 inches. And remember that distance cubed thing. So in going from just even getting yourself an extra 1/2 inch off of something like a quarter means that you've got to be several times more sensitive, or the magnet has to be several times stronger. So if you're going to gaff an object, you're better getting a magnet that's a little bit thicker, that doesn't have quite the diameter to gaff your own object with. So anyways, that's how we'll handle the different gaffing. Is you can use any of these neo magnets. Let's go grab something else and I'll show you. Okay, let's talk about two very important things now. This is a regular knife. Actually, I've used this for card to lemon for many, many times. This is just a standard knife. Now, almost everything that's metallic, it's like even your car that you drive, has been magnetized by the Earth's magnetic field. Anything that's ferrous, and often that's how they detect cars when they pull into different spots, is this big magnet comes over them, and it's actually your car because it's been magnetized. This knife has been magnetized, and in fact, the magnetic field of the Earth constantly going through it also sends off an additional magnetic field. This unit can actually detect things like ferrous metal. So if you can hear that, this is not a gaff knife at all. Now, I'm not recommending that you go do smash and stab with a knife, but I want you to know that you can detect metal. There is actually some ferrous metal coins now in the UK, and if you get one of those coins, you can actually load a magnet onto it, and you can detect that coin. And yes, you can detect a knife like this under a cup. Now, this thing is so sensitive, though, that a lot of the magnetic spikes that are out there are too strong. These are huge magnets, and this is very, very sensitive. So I don't recommend it for use with those spike routines, because you can't tell where the field's coming from, because it can throw a field like 8 inches, and unless you have your cups really far apart, you could get messed up. So I don't recommend doing any types of spike routines with this device. Now let's talk about how to charge the unit. It's still on, actually. The only thing you want to do is you want to make sure that the unit is on, and then you're going to plug in a mini USB to it. And this does have a top and a bottom to it, so one of them is actually thicker than the other side. The fat side goes toward the upside of the LED. Now, when you plug this thing in, you're actually going to get a very, very bright light. And of course, this thing's going to turn on, but you're going to get a very bright light. It's going to get brighter when you plug it in compared to when it's removed. I'm going to remove it now. And you can see, in this case, the light's actually off. And as you plug that in, it's going to get very bright. This takes a maximum of 2 hours to charge. You can leave it on the charger if you want. It's not going to damage the unit. You don't need to charge it more than 2 hours, though. The light may turn off when it's charged, and it may not turn off when it's charged. But don't worry about it. If you've connected it like this for 2 hours, it's fully charged and ready to go. You're going to get 20 hours of life out of each charge, so don't worry about that. You're going to get plenty of life out of it. One thing that's very important is you need to charge it with the unit on, okay? And when you disconnect it, it's still in a charge mode, so I'm going to hold it over a magnet right now. It's still on because I discharged it and I'm not getting any signal from it. That's normal. You need to turn it off, and you really need to wait for about 6 seconds before you turn it back on. It's actually so low power that it can actually sustain where it was at for quite a period of time before you turn it on, and it won't even know that you turned it off. So turn it off, let it sit like that, turn it back on, and then you're going to get the 3 buzzes. My receiver is off, so I didn't get it. There we go, and it's actually working now. So basically you turn it off for 6 seconds, turn it back on, and you are ready to go. Now, when you turn your unit on, you should get the 3 vibrations, and it should be stable. As you move this around in free space, you really shouldn't see that any signals come. You might see the light flash every once in a while, but you shouldn't have any false signals from it, which is the most important thing. Now, this thing is a very sensitive device. It's not meant to be stuck next to really large magnets and for any period of time, so you've got to be very careful with it. It's kind of like one of those little tiny little scales. If I were to step on the thing, it would break it. This is a very sensitive piece of gear. You don't want to stick it onto a big magnet because that will cause it problems. Now, it's something, though, that we can fix. So when you turn the unit on, which I'm doing right now, if you get a lot of flashing back and forth and it's just flashing and flashing and it's not stable, basically, you need to demagnetize the unit. And the way you demagnetize the unit is you take this fairly large magnet I provided. It's about it's a 1/16 of an inch thick, and it's about a 3/4 inch disc. And what we're going to do is we're going to swipe it past the unit fairly quickly. And it needs to touch down on the unit, not over the top of the unit. You need to actually touch the unit because, again, the power of this varies a lot with distance. So touching the unit, and I swiped right past it, just like this. That will demagnetize this, and after you've done that, it should be stable. So I'm going to turn this unit back on. We've got our 3 buzzes, and now we should be in a stable situation. There's our tails, and this should be our heads. There we go. Now you can also set the unit off by squeezing it. If you just squeeze down on it, you can get it set off. It's because you're moving some of the parts around inside there. It's not something that you should do. If you've strapped it to your wrist like under a watch and you're moving around and you're squeezing down on the unit too much, you need to strap it looser than that, because that can cause it to give you false signals. All of these things can recalibrate out though. Now I'm going to show you the recalibration sequence. If during performance you do get this too close to a magnet, a strong magnet, it can stick on. I'm going to show you that right now. We're going to use the magnetic half. I'm going to hold it to the half and I'm going to pull it away. Again, you should do this in somebody's hand like this. But if for some reason it gets too close to it, you're going to see the light actually turn on. It's going to stay on. After a few buzzes, you'll see it turn off because it actually recalibrates back out the fact that it got too close to a very strong magnet. So let's do it now. I'm going to hold it there. There it's buzzing. And then now, there's the light is off. And now it's recalibrated and it's ready to go again. I'm just over the top of that quarter and it's totally fine. There we go. Now I'm going to hold it again to there. Now it's stuck on basically. And it's going to recalibrate itself out. Light turns off. So it has a nice error code where it can get rid of that. That's actually something else. This is not it sending that signal. It's something else in the lab is actually on. So anyways, that's the recalibration if you get too close to something. So it's something to be aware of. Try not to do it. Don't store these things together. Don't store, as you can see it's picking that up, but don't store the quarter next to the unit itself, because it will magnetize this unit. It's going to cause you stability problems that you'll have to fix later. So don't do that. And another thing that I'm going to tell you about is what a lot of people do, like they'll have the quarter in their hand, or in this case it's a $50, or even the receiver. And I reach over and I turn this thing on and I'm watching it and I go, oh, it's on. Well, look, it's stuck on now because this is way too much magnet for this guy to be next to when you turn it on. Make sure that you don't have your receiver in your hand. Make sure you don't have your quarter in your hand. Make sure this is away from all pieces of metal, and turn it on. And then wait to get the 3 buzzes. Now we're calibrated, now we're good to go. So this can go under your watch or in your sleeve. Let's talk about the different types of setups that you can do. Okay, I hope you guys like this. I'm going to be the performer and the spectator. The important thing that I want to show you though is that this unit is more sensitive on the ends of the unit, just slightly, but it is a little bit more sensitive on the ends of the unit. So when the spectator has the object in their hand and you're coming in, it's best to come in long ways like this, and you'll be right over the top. Now of course come from the top if you want to do heads or tails, but otherwise you want to come in from this direction. Now the best way that I found to do this, and a lot of the guys have been trying this, especially like Brett Berry has been using this a lot, but he duct tapes this right into the sleeve and just puts a little piece of black tape on there. His cuffs are a little bit tighter than the cuffs I'm showing here, but just a little bit of duct tape, turn that thing on before your evening, and you can easily do several hours of walk around. Now when it's right in that position, so I'm going to show it from the outside, but it's basically just right here, just slightly, tucked inside with a little bit of black tape over it. But from that position, it's very simple to come in and do any type of hand adjustment that you want to do. And again, this is going to be positioned right over the top, and you don't have to worry about the spectator feeling any vibrations or anything, of course, because this is going to be felt in your ankle or your waist or wherever you have the receiver. So really having it right here in the cuff is a very good spot for it. Now, if you do want to perform sleeveless, I've been quite successful using this in just a very simple finger palm. Now it's very difficult to see, it's very thin, and you can't see it at all, and you can very successfully come in here and do an adjustment and get a buzz right over the top just with that hand, right over the top of the hand like that, and you can't even see that. Then you can ditch it back in your pocket if you want to. So that's another way. I've also been successful putting this, believe it or not, into a thumb tip. I have a pretty large thumb tip, and I just drop this in there, and I put my thumb down inside there, and by just taking, it'll be of course at the very end of the unit, and just by taking my thumb and placing it right here on the top of their hand, like this, I usually have it covered, but I'll come in like this and touch it to the top of the hand. I'll get a signal from anything that's inside the hand. So you can use a thumb tip if you want to. And of course, you can tuck it underneath the watch. I do want you to be careful though with watches, because a couple things can happen. There's a lot of metal pins in watches, and those can actually set the unit off. Now, if you do put it in a metal watch and it feels like it's getting stuck, like you're going pulse, 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 it'll recalibrate to its environment, which is that watch, and then it will work after that. Thing is though, as you're walking around and moving about, it can adjust and move, and if that happens, that could be detected as a change in the magnetic field, causing it to go off. So using it in metallic watches can be a little bit problematic. So just practice with the watch that you have, and just to see if it's going to work for you. It has worked in many different watches, but just so that you know. And if you have any types of other straps or anything that you're using, as long as they're not metallic, that'll be fine. Also, when you're performing with this, you do want to be careful about performing with things like metal tables, because it will detect ferrous metal. So this can be a table that you're sitting on. It can detect, if you take your hand and you just put it down by your side, it can detect your phone in your pocket. There's many things it'll actually detect, and you can test it and you're going to see. So it's really, really good and needs to be very sensitive to detect something like a quarter or even like these other really, really small magnets. But you will pick up other types of metal because they are actually magnetic. Even though you don't feel any magnetic pull from them, they actually are magnetic. So it will pick those up. So be a little bit careful with your setup there and where you're going to have your hand. But it is a very, very small unit. And so, be careful with it, and try not to make sure that you don't lose it. Make sure that it's taped in securely wherever you decide to place the unit. So hopefully that answers all of those questions. Okay, I want to show you one of my favorite effects that I do with this. I carry with me the quarter, and I carry 5 different bills. So a 20, a 100, a 10, a 5, and a 1. And I have a spectator place these out on the table, or I'll actually do this for them. Then I have the spectator place a quarter underneath one of the bills. In this case, it's going to be underneath the 5. And then I'll turn my receiver on and place it here. By simply running my hand over the bills, I can actually determine, you can see it buzzing there, where that quarter is at. It's right there. Just like that. Now, sometimes I'll do this as a pseudo muscle reading, so I'll actually have them grab my hand and direct me right or left, depending on where the quarter is, and then I'll be able to find it based on some sort of a pseudo muscle reading. I would recommend that when you start doing this, though, for one thing, make sure that you're not working on a metal table, because that can throw it off. If you are, you need to be far enough away so that you're not detecting the table itself. And the other thing is, you need to make sure you have the bills spread out far enough, because if you get the bills too close together, it's actually so sensitive that if the bills are too close together, you can sometimes have a hard time telling that that's coming from the 5. It's not coming from here because the sensor is actually right here on the side, but you're getting it there, and you're still going to be getting it here a little bit, so because it can actually detect that far away. So you want to make sure you've got enough space between the bills so that you only get it over one bill, like that. There we go. And work slowly so that you know that you're not getting a signal. So, anyways, this is one of my favorite routines that I do with it. It's finding an object underneath napkins, or it can be underneath drink pads, or it can be underneath bills if you like. One thing I want to mention, if you're using your shirt and you're taping it on the inside, make sure that that light is covered with some gaff tape, or you put the light in the other direction, because that light will shine through some shirt cuffs, and if you're working in a dark environment, every time you get next to that quarter, you're going to see a little light go off in your cuff. So found that one during performance, and you're going to want to prevent that when you're using it. So thanks again for purchasing Scan 3D. It really is a very sophisticated piece of equipment. It's probably one of the most sophisticated things that we've done. So I hope you enjoy it. I think you're going to find it to be the best magnet detector on the market available, and I think it's going to allow you to do some really amazing things. So if you got any great ideas, please share them on Facebook or send us an email and let us know how you're using it. So thanks a lot.